Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Gamers Getting Older. Today we're talking survival games, everything from Project Zomboid to 7 Days to Die and everything in between. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and see how everybody's feeling about this topic. How do you guys feel about survival games?
I love survival games. It's always been kind of my niche to go back to. Honestly, it's kind of been something that I've really got into in the past 3 years, I'd say. Like before this, I was a lot of real time strategy, but the survival is just, it gives you that challenge that you just not used to in other games. That it's what I've come to enjoy about it.
Yeah, it really has blown up within the last few years and become like a lot more popular than it has been. This is actually a topic we can't really get nostalgic about because survival games like we have today didn't really exist back then. Steven, how do you feel about survival games and what's your favorite one?
Honestly, I'm indifferent about them. Like I play them because like you guys play them, but they're not something that I typically pick up and play. I'm not like, oh dude, this looks so much fun. We should play it. So I've played a few. I've played 7 Days a couple times. Definitely with you guys, which I didn't hate it, right? But it's not something I know a couple of you like will play it just to play it, by yourself and go through it, which is something I've tried a couple times. I get like 10 minutes into a solo game and I'm like, yeah, fuck this. I'm going back to Rocket League. It's
Yeah,
just it moves too slow for me. But of the ones I have played that I've enjoyed, Brendan and I recently played No Man's Sky. He actually was like, dude, you got to get this. I'm like, no, I don't have Xbox Game Pass. He's like, just buy it. They're running a deal for 3 months for like $1. So I was like, fine. So I installed No Man's Sky and I ended up playing it for about 80 hours. I really enjoyed it because it wasn't so heavy on the like, you've got to eat food to do this, or, it was like you could go out and harvest the plants and you're harvesting carbon and nitrogen and all these things and using it to build stuff. And the aspect of traveling from like planet to planet stuff was really cool. The story was actually pretty cool too. Just as far as the story for a survival game. But then when you get to the end of the story, you still have the ability to like free explore and build and like buy ships and do this sort of stuff. So I really enjoyed that. But if I had to say my favorite of the ones I played would probably be Valheim. Brendan got me into Valheim, and Valheim really like took over my life at one point.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
it
we
did.
played the hell out of it. And I think the aspect that I liked about that is yes, you needed food and you had to have food to survive. However, you had like a drop point, right? Where if your health hit 25, it didn't go below that. And you weren't like, oh my God, I'm going to starve to death. You could cruise around your base and stay at 25 and do kind of like the stuff that you need to do, do some cooking or like tend to your animals or like whatever it may be without feeling like you had to me, waste food, right? Like I wanted the food to take with me when I'm going out to explore or I'm going mining or I'm doing whatever. Like that's when I wanted to consume the food. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm tending to our crops and I'm having to burn through all this damn food that we just farmed, and I'm burning through food to farm more food. Like it felt kind of productive. So like that was one thing about Valheim that I really enjoyed, was that I could do
yeah,
those things around the base and still like not have to consume food and like still accomplish things.
yeah. Valheim's food system's really nice because your character doesn't die if you eat, but the food that you eat is more tuned around going into combat or doing
Mhm.
other things. So you really can think about what you want to eat for what situation you're going to eat rather than my character's hungry and when the food meter reaches 0, I'm going to die.
Yeah. And I mean, it's because you've got that, like, oh, I'm going out to scout and look about the area and I'm going to need to run a lot. So you can stack more stamina food with a little bit of, health food. Whereas, you're going to fight like a troll or, some of the new bosses and you stack the health rather than stamina because, you want to be able to take a hit and not die immediately. And that's one thing I did like about that. The building in that game though is like second to none. I love building in 7 days and all that, with the block style build, kind of what from Minecraft, but being able to customize like you can in Valheim and move the pieces in just the right order, or like, hold shift and like just smidge it over just a little bit if it doesn't fit just right, and just to really give the finishing touches. It's one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed about that game.
Yeah, you're not stuck to that like lock in place building, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like I want to lock it in place, but like say if you're trying to build a tower, right? You don't want your bricks to lock in place. Like you want it to go in at an angle so you can almost create a circle view of a tower with square blocks. And you can actually do it pretty well with Valheim, which I thought was pretty awesome. Which is one thing that I really like loved too. And over time, the more we played, some of the cool things that like with Valheim that just made the building easier, right? Like we happened to see some YouTube videos and stuff because it was constantly you're like, I'm out of range of my damn workbench, or like I'm out of range of the stone cutter. So we happen to see it. I follow the Valheim Reddit page. And I'm constantly sharing like, guys, check this out. This is cool. This is cool. And one guy was like, he's like, I do this with every building, and like he removes the floor. And what he does is he digs a hole under the building that he's building and drops in the workbench and the stone cutter under the floor, puts the floor back down so that the whole time he's building, he's always in range. And when it's done, he doesn't have to worry about removing those because you'll never know they're there. But you can constantly add and repair without having to like build it and demolish it, build it and demolish it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And if for anybody that's not familiar, Valheim is more of a Viking based survival game where you fight goblins and stuff. And 7 Days to Die is more of a zombie Walking Dead style game. But the difference in the two is actually quite unique. I mean, each one
Yes.
is completely their own game. I mean, like Valheim gives you this story that you're this soul that's been resurrected to fight some war, right?
You're a warrior that you're kind of in like the purgatory, and you're going through and killing these bosses, and
Yeah, maybe they're like demons in purgatory, and
yeah,
you're trying to work your way to
basically
meet
you're
Odin.
beating them. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
it's like
you're making Odin proud by knocking
yeah,
out these greater threats to the realm.
and proving that you're
Yeah.
worthy to go to
Yeah.
Valhalla.
And the one thing that's kind of cool with that is like when you're out mining or doing stuff, if you like pay really close attention, you can actually see like a little shadow of Odin sometimes watching you. Like there's a crow that'll come land, and then Odin will just appear, and then he'll fly away when you get close.
Yeah, you get close to it and it dissipates.
Mhm.
It's like it puff of smoke and he's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, I loved that touch. Yeah. And 7 Days to Die doesn't really have a story. You basically just wake up naked, and they're like, make some cloth armor and a campfire, and then go talk to this guy. And
Yeah.
you're just immediately thrown in, and there you're basically, you learn there's a trader system, and you can go to the trader, get some quests, and move on from there. I think the thing that I love about games like this is that you basically make your own fun, though. Like even though there's some padded storylines there, you're really doing it how you want it and where you want it with what you want. It's almost like why I liked skateboarding when I was younger was that it was just like this weird corner thing that nobody really had a coach for. It was just like whatever. Like if you figure it out, cool. If not, just go back home and play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater a little bit more. Like this is really just like a make your own adventure game.
Yeah, like talking about that with like 7 days. What last time me and you played, we made this extravagant horde base, and we had all those different traps and everything in there, and it was just like, let's see how long we can go until we die. It was just like constant wave of zombies every so many days, and that's what makes those games fun. Is like you get to a point where you can survive on your own, easily. So you bump up the difficulty, and then you get these like specials. Like if you haven't played 7 Days to Die, every 7 days, it's in the name, 7 Days to Die, there's what's called a horde night, and a bunch of zombies start spawning and running at you, and you have to build a base to fend them off and kill them and keep them, and you have to survive the night, and then the next morning you can loot everything and you're good for another 7 days, and then on the 14th keep going, and it gradually gets harder, so you have to constantly upgrade your base and get better weapons. But that's what I enjoy. There's not that stagnant, okay, I've beat this, now what? Is it constantly gets harder. You constantly have to find new ways to survive, and it's just that thrill of, am I going to make it through this night with the horde base that I built on day 2, or am I going to have to make one the night before?
Yeah, and I think games like this can draw a certain type of crowd. Like a lot of MMO people really like games like this because I feel like we are looking for our new forever game. Like we grew up with a certain game, and that was the game. And like I feel like we're always looking for the next video game we play, at least I am, to be this game that can somehow span the course of 10 years and give me like all this enjoyment, and and all these memories. But that's something that we'd never find. But then there's also the social crowd that comes, like Steven. I can't tell you how many people I've had join my 7 Days to Die game, or recently my Project Zomboid games, who really aren't interested in games like this, but they're just like, yeah, it was a cheap game, whatever. I'll hop in and play because some other people are playing it.
Yeah, that's definitely me all the way with the survival games. I'm very much I like the social aspect of it, and I'll play the game and I'm like, God, this controls are terrible, or this is terrible, but I'll continue to play it because it's hanging out in Discord and talking about it, and the laughs that come along with it. That's definitely what draws me to those games. I did like that Valheim had a similar mechanic to it. Like after you defeated a boss, there was chances of your base getting raided, and the level of difficulty of that raid increased as you defeated more bosses. So like it entices you, like if your original base is all like plain wood, and next thing you know, it's like the ground starts to shake and you get raided by trolls, like a couple swings and they've like taken out like half of your camp. Like there's boom, walls are gone, roofs gone, like
Yeah, it can get brutal in that game. All your animals escape.
So me and Steven have talked about our favorites. What's your favorite, Nick?
Currently, I would say Project Zomboid.
Yeah.
This little game in alpha that's just doing really, really cool, hyper realistic, but not so super challenging things. I mean, I don't think I've survived more than 4 days without dying in that game. I mean, it's so difficult, but it keeps you coming back for more. There's
Mhm.
always something else to try to draw you in. How long can you survive? Is the power going to go out? It's an isometric kind of top down game. So it's not like a 7 Days to Die or a Valheim, where those are first person and third person, where you can, battle these things and you're kind of like a machine that can just take down hordes of enemies. In this game, you can take down like two or three and you got to run. You're tired. You're overweight.
Mhm.
You're a smoker. Whatever you've chosen. So I mean, this is one of the reasons why I fell in love with 7 Days to Die to begin with. Was I have this love for a sense of danger. When you're playing 7 Days to Die in the beginning and you don't know what you're doing, you're sitting in a house alone, you're scared, your heart's racing, you don't want anybody to hear you. And Project Zomboid, it just gives you that feeling like tenfold, because you will die if they hear you, basically.
Yeah, to me, like when we played it, when you got it for me and I played it that first time, it was very much like they took aspects from The Walking Dead. Be careful if you do this. And I'm like, what? I'm just going to go into this trailer and get some stuff. And then I set off this house alarm. He's like, you need to go now. I'm like, why? He's like, they will come. He's like, they hear that noise and they will come after you. Anything like that, you break glass and they're like, what? And they're coming for you. And it's so hyper realistic that I'm like, no, I got him. I'm gonna fight him off. And I was like, oh crap, he got too close. I was like, I don't know. It says I got scratched. I was like, I don't know if I'm infected. And like I kept tending to the wound and tending to the wound and tending to the wound. And the scratch never went away. Next thing you know, like I have this infection level that doesn't go down. And I'm like, when am I going to turn? And you have no idea. If you choose not to tell your party mates that you've been bit, you literally could be in the base with them. And all of a sudden you just die. And then you come back as a zombie, and people that you're playing with are like, oh God, there's now a zombie in our base. What happened to you, Steven? And they're forced to kill your character.
Yeah, I believe you drank a bottle of bleach.
I did. When I realized I was going to die from the infection, I was like, I'm just going to get it over with and chugged a bottle of bleach.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And it has building mechanics. You can build your own base and stuff, but it's nowhere near as deep as a Valheim or a 7 Days to Die. But what you can do is cut up ingredients and make like chop suey. You can do all this interesting stuff. You can also add bleach to a dish and rename it a special name and give it to somebody else if you're playing multiplayer, and kill them and they won't even know.
Jesus.
But I think I can tell a recent story that sums up this entire game. Me and some friends started up recently, and our only goal was to get to Louisville, Kentucky, which is it's a large city in the map of Project Zomboid. So we started out, we found a car, and we took off, right? Well, we got on this road and we saw some zombies that had some stuff that we kind of wanted. So I tried fighting some and I damaged the car a little bit. So we drove away, but the car started to die. I damaged the engine by hitting zombies, of course. So the car died in the middle of the road, and there's just a horde of zombies coming. And I'm like mashing the button to try to start the engine. And it's like, it's trying. It's the little engine that couldn't. One of my friends panicked and got out of the car as the engine started. And we took off without him. And he got eaten by the horde of zombies. So he respawns at our safe house. We drive back. Well, he makes a new character. You don't ever respawn. Your character dies. You make a new character. So he made a new character. We went and picked up his new character. This time my friend was driving. So we pick him up and we take off. We're going down the highway. Everything's looking great, dodging zombies. But my friend, it was his first time driving, and he smashed into a tree and destroyed the car, totaled the car. So we had to find a new car because we're in the middle of nowhere on the highway, surrounded by zombies. So we do all this maneuvering. We get the zombies out of the way. I siphon the gas out of our van so that we can try to find another car on the road, which we do. But it took a lot of effort to get gas and put it in this car. And along the way, while this whole process was going, that friend that died before, he died again. He got bit. He quit the game. He was done. But me and my other friend, we were determined to get to Louisville. So we found a working car, filled it up with gas, and took off. Made it all the way to the gates of Louisville, which you can't drive into because there's a military barricade. So you have to go on foot. So we abandon the car, start running down the road, and start trying to avoid all these different zombies. Eventually, we find a new car, get the car going, and take off, try to find a safe house, crash into a fence, get out, try to run through the gate to get into this house to try to make it our safe house. The gate's locked. We're both too tired to jump the fence, and we basically get swarmed by zombies and we die right there.
Oh no. See that makes it sound so much more fun, because with, like, you talk about like 7 days or something, when you get bit, you can heal the infection. But like with Project Zomboid, you can't. So there's that extra level of, hey guys, I got bit. I don't know when I'm going to die. Whereas 7 days, you could have 50% infection and you take a couple pills and you're back down to 0.
Yeah, it definitely adds a different aspect to the game and makes it very challenging. And yeah, you could not tell somebody that you got bit and you're just cruising along. And next thing you know, like your guy just drops dead. And it could be when everybody's sleeping or everybody's not paying attention and
driving down the car on the highway from a horde of zombies.
And you could wipe your whole party.
Yes.
Oh, that's what that meant. My bad, guys. I didn't know that infection meant I was infected.
Yeah. That sense of everything you do has a risk factor of 100. Because even if it's one zombie, if you get careless and it bites you, it's over. So you're always on your toes, whether you're looting grandma's house or Megalomar.
I was saying it's just cool just with the vehicles and stuff too, because like you literally could go up to one and get in it and there's no keys, right? So like you got to try and find the keys, and like you do all this work and find the keys. Like say it's parked outside of the Megalomart. You go into the Megalomart and you're like, I'm gonna try and find the office and find the keys or figure out who's got the keys. And you're like, sweet, I found the keys. These are probably the keys for the dope Mustang out front or the RV that I want to steal, so that I know we can get somewhere and it's going to take some damage. And you do all this and then you get into it and then turn it on and the tank's empty.
No gas.
That would suck. That would be terrible.
The game makes you work for every inch of it, but it's very fun. It doesn't have the horde mechanic like Valheim and 7 Days to Die have. So there's not like a horde of zombies coming for you every few days or anything. There are certain meta events that happen. One in particular is quite devastating. It's called the helicopter event. It's probably the funniest like meme of an event, because middle of the zombie apocalypse, for some reason this helicopter shows up just looking for somebody. And if you're out when the helicopter comes, it just follows you and it draws all of the zombies. It's like a mobile house alarm and it just follows you. There's so many great memes of this helicopter just following this random survivor in the zombie apocalypse for no reason, just to be a dick, like, basically.
Come get me. Drop down.
And the other aspect of that game that was pretty cool when we played it is he's like, when you first start, it's like you're starting at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. Whereas like 7 days, you have the trader and that's it. Like you don't have anything else. Whereas like Project Zomboid, when you first start, the house that you're in or wherever you make your safe house, you still have running water. You still have power. The world itself is still functioning as the zombie apocalypse is taking over. But as you progress in the game and the longer that you play, and even if you do die and respawn, the timer doesn't reset as far as the world you're in. Eventually the power goes out, right? The grid goes offline. Running water stops working. Like it's the idea of like what you would think with the Walking Dead sort of thing, like the progression of like, oh yeah, this is happening, but I still have all of these things that make it easier, and then slowly those things are no more, and you're forced to have to find water in other ways, find generators, and force yourself to find gas to keep the generator going, to keep your house powered.
Yeah, I've never made it that far. I always die before any of that stuff happens, and the crazy thing is basically the whole game is a tutorial up until the power and the water go out, because if you're not ready for that, it's basically over.
Yeah, it's a very intense game. Like I said, it was fun. It was definitely fun playing it, but it's one of those ones that I couldn't play it by myself because I think I would get very angry.
Yeah.
Nick, that yeah sounded like personal experience.
I can't tell you how many times I've spent 20 minutes sitting there contemplating like the skills to take, finding the right character, getting a cool name like Thaddeus Clay. And then I'm like, I got a great plan. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I run outside and I get bit. And it's like, well, that was great.
And then here comes Thaddeus Clay Jr.
It can get frustrating, but it's just whether or not you want to put the time in to, get past that step and learn what you did wrong last time.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, one thing that Project Zomboid doesn't have, the 7 Days to Die does have, gyrocopters.
Yeah. Gyrocopters are amazing.
Personal helicopters.
Especially the new little personal drone that you can get now.
Yeah, with the recent update, they gave you a flying drone, and it's a wonderful addition.
Yes. Heals you, runs around, extra storage for you, flashlight.
And you can stack the storage units too. So I have a level 6 one, and you can put every box, every slot for mods, you can put a storage box in.
That would be nice. And put them all and then have the healing one.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah. Everything but one, and have the healing one. So like when you hit 50%, it heals you.
Uh-huh.
It's so nice.
I named mine Edith.
I'd probably name mine Helga. Just because that's what my little Roomba was called.
So what was the very first survival, like considering like survival as the key word there, like survival crafting style game, like what was the first one you guys ever like saw and played?
Well, saw and played are two separate things for me. The first survival game that I ever like saw would have been Minecraft. The one that I ever played was 7 Days. Like I never really wasn't a big survival game guy until I tried out 7 Days like 2 or 3 years ago, and then now that's all I play.
It's converted many people.
Like it's completely, it has consumed my life.
I think it's a game that shows you that the formula for Minecraft can be converted into a form that adults can enjoy.
Exactly. Like the way I describe 7 Days to Die is Minecraft with zombies and hookers.
Yeah, exactly.
But wouldn't you say that our first survival game would have technically been the Oregon Trail?
Because
that's what that was.
That's true.
I mean, it was a survival game. You had to shoot animals to get meat. And you had to eat, dying from dysentery.
So that would probably be the first one that I saw and played, because we all did in school, and it was definitely something that I remember playing countless hours. Always at school. Like it's never a game that I owned.
No,
I only ever played it at school.
Yeah, I owe my interest in writing to that game, because that was the first time I ever got into writing things, because I was whatever age when we were playing that game, but I had it at home, and I would play it at home and eat string cheese all the time. And I specifically remember the string cheese, but I would sit there and update my journal on the trail, and I would type these pages of notes, which are probably just ridiculously stupid, childish notes at this point. Lord knows where they are today. Data can never be destroyed; it just changes form. But I can't imagine what they say. But I used to write out all these things, And like that, I remember that is what that was my first time where I like wrote something out and got me into writing. And I would credit Oregon Trail today to my interest in Dungeons and Dragons, because the reason I like Dungeons and Dragons is because I love the storytelling aspect of it, and how you can take certain liberties and change things around and make stories kind of your own, or write your own story. Like it's Dungeons and Dragons is such a good creativity booster, a good avenue for your creativity, that there's just so many different things you can do. And it all spawned from Oregon Trail for me.
Yeah, Oregon Trail was definitely fun. A lot of fun. I, like you said, spent many hours, and it was always that like just you felt accomplished if you got your work done at a decent time and you got to go play that and you made it to the end. Like you're on the river rafting, going and dodging the rocks before everybody got done with their homework or whatever, and you had to go back to your desk, and the teacher's like, okay, everybody come back, and you're just like, hold on, I'm going down the river, like let me go.
Yeah.
2 more minutes and I'll be done. Yeah, I think outside of Oregon Trail, the next thing that it's not even maybe a survival game in this sense, but to me, I guess it kind of felt like it, because you still were responsible for keeping your avatar happy and fed and
Are you gonna say what I
alive,
think you're gonna say?
and it would be The Sims.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say those handheld pets that we
The
used to have.
Tamagotchi and
The
Oh.
the pets.
Tamagotchis. I swear I thought that's what you were gonna say.
That was my survival game. My little Tamagotchi pet died so many times.
No, I was gonna say The Sims, because your character would get angry if you were like constantly reading or doing this. Like, oh, I have no social interaction, and you'd have to tend to that. Or they're like, I haven't slept in days, or like I need to use the bathroom. And if you don't let him go to the bathroom, and
I mean, you're right. If you didn't do the things properly, he would not survive. If you
Yeah.
put him in a pool and took the ladder out, he's like, "Oh, I don't know how to go to this pool," and he dies.
Yeah.
Or like you could just put him in a wall in a room with no door, no window, and he's just like, "Well, I guess this is the house that I live in."
I was gonna say there was one time that I built a really nice house, everything in there that you could need. And this guy's just like, I've got nothing to do. I'm lonely. And I'm like, you want to be lonely? Fine. And so I deleted everything. I put him in a small room and I just left him there with a trash can and a toilet. That's it. Screw you.
yeah, you build this immaculate house with like a bowling alley and a
Yeah.
pinball machine and all of these things. You're like, man, I would love to have all this stuff. And your little Sims character's like, oh, this is boring. I've got
Grim
nothing
Reaper
to do.
showed up and he went with him gladly. I was like, screw you. Next person that moved into that house loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting take on a survival game, because it's not like you were playing as that character itself. Like you were playing more of this like overlord god kind of figure, and like they would move in and you just take control of them as they move in, and to try and keep them happy and whatnot. I definitely put a lot of Sims. That's probably, I would say, my first outside the Oregon Trail like survival style game. But even that's different than modern day survival stuff, right? Like compared to like 7 Days and the other things that we're talking about. But
Yeah, and then it expands beyond just the games we're talking about. I mean, there's a one called Mist Survival, which is it's more like I Am Legend. There's kind of weird monsters that don't go out during the day. And if you look inside dark rooms, they're like huddled up together, just like, just kind of zombies, but kind of just monsters. And then sometimes there's like a mist that comes through and they can travel in the mist. And that's kind of when you have to be careful. But that game has changed a lot since the last time I played it. I played it a few years ago and it's gone through a lot of updates. So, but I mean, it was fun back then. There just wasn't a whole lot.
He would walk away like right now.
Just right in the middle.
Like just right smack in the middle. I'm gonna be going through this and editing it, and it's gonna be like, oh, there goes Steven. He's gonna go back and go, God, Casey wanted me for something. Shut up.
Yeah. Anybody that's listening to the audio of this is the part where Steven left. He just came.
no,
back.
I had to pee, but I figured you guys would just talk while I was peeing, and I would just jump back in when I got back. I was still listening.
Oh, you thought wrong.
Yeah, I know. But I didn't want to be like, hey, wait, I'm peeing real quick. Like
This whole operation just shut the down. Okay.
So Another survival game that I really enjoyed the way that they like went about it, because it's solely based on, having to figure everything out. Like there's no like guide or anything. You just get dropped in the world on this little wooden raft, and you're floating in the middle of the ocean and you have no idea what's going on. And the game is called Raft. And I loved it. Steven's played it with me as well. And I mean, that was another game that we kind of got into for a while. And as you start to go and you start, gathering, this material, and you can make your raft bigger and all this stuff, then you start to realize there's other things you can do. There's little outposts, and you get like a radio transmitter and you can get different stuff. And that's, when you start getting kind of the story aspect. But like, when you start this game, it literally just drops you on this little 1x1 square raft, and that's it. That's all you have. That and a hook.
And as you're floating in the ocean, you have barrels or planks of wood or leaves and plastic. It really depicts the ocean as being a very, very dirty place. That like if you ever stray on the ocean, you would be fine, because there's so much pollution that you could build a giant houseboat, basically, is the way it depicts the ocean.
I've never played it before, but looking at it, it's always reminded me of that Kurt Russell movie Waterworld.
Yeah, I could see that.
But that is one that I enjoyed that I actually played outside of playing with friends. So Brendan and I played it a lot, and I've picked it back up since and actually put some more hours into it and started over and got further than him and I did before in the story, because the story does progress pretty far. You start by building all this stuff, and then you'll stumble across things, and it's fun because when you're first doing it, you're like, oh, I see an island coming up. But like if you don't have, there's a current. So if you don't have the stuff to build an anchor, or you don't have a paddle, you're just like hoping that you can like get close to the island. And like say you have a paddle, you like paddle closer to the island, but then if you didn't make a generic anchor to start with, you'll get up to that island, you'll get off your boat, and if you didn't park it just right, it will carry it away from the island, and your boat will just take off without you. And like now you're just stuck on this island, and this island isn't very big. And typically you're like pretty much screwed, because like you're like, well, there's not enough resources here for me to build a new raft, and I'm basically gonna die.
Yeah, it's always looked fun, but it's one that I've never actually played, so it's always fun to hear stories about it and hear how it works.
As I say, we got pretty far in it, and we built we had like a double-decker raft system, and
a double-decker raft.
Raft.
Was it a two-story raft?
It was a two-story raft. We had a big base, and then we built poles up and built a second story, and we had two sails up on top, so that way we could go faster with an anchor on the backside, little like the paddles and stuff, so we could steer it.
That sounds amazing.
And
it was fun.
I played it long enough that you get to a point where you actually get a wood burning engine, and then a like rotor, like a giant like windmill style thing on the side of this boat, and then you hook up all the piping to it, and you get an actual place to steer from. So then I attached it to the top of the level, and I'm just like, I'm lining it up, and this thing's just and it's carrying you along, and like you've got a spot where you've planted potatoes or other things that you can then harvest while you're out there. You got a water purifying system, because obviously in the ocean you can't drink the salt water, so you'll take the salt water out and pour it into this bucket, and it's got glass on it. And what it does is when the water, or when the sun hits the glass, it causes the water underneath to evaporate. Well, when it does, it then evaporates, comes down, and then drips, but the salt is taken out of it, so it allows you to make purified water. So like there definitely is an aspect of like you have not just a hunger bar, but you have a hunger and a hydration bar. So there's two different ones that you have to maintain to survive. And it's a lot of fun. And on top of that, when you first start, you're like building this raft, you're like, oh, this is great. But what you don't realize until it happens is there's also a shark that's constantly following you, and it will jump and bite your raft and like literally take out chunks of your raft.
Yeah. If you're not paying attention, you're like, where's this coming from? What is this noise? And you look down and it's sitting there biting, and you're trying to like hit it off, and you're standing on the one that it's chewing, and then all of a sudden it breaks and you're in the water with the shark. And then it's swimming around and coming at you. You've just got this spear, and so it's coming at you. You're like, get back! And like you can hit it just right. Yeah.
All while you're trying to keep an eye on your raft, because your raft is now floating away.
Yeah. You need to go deep blue sea on it and go for the eyes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, then it's fun because if you do manage to kill it, obviously you can then loot its body for the meat to cook, but then you also get a shark head. So then you get this giant shark head helmet mask that you can wear as a trophy of like, haha, I beat the shark.
Have you ever faced down a shark face to face and fought it and killed it?
Yeah. So when you get to the bigger islands, you get like a shark will constantly attack you, even when you're on the island. If you're anywhere near your boat, it'll start attacking. But if you're not on your boat, it'll just swim around the island. And you can get down in the water, and that's where a lot of like the resources and stuff is. So you have to build a spear and then jump down into the water and just sit there and wait for it. And you can like stab it and kill it. It's so many hits. The stronger your spear is, the easier it is to kill. But they also have, you can fish up a bunch of fish and throw it overboard as like a
Shark
here,
bait.
eat these fish instead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like it'll stay over there, a minute eating that, and then it'll start hunting again. But if you kill it, you get like 5 minutes where there's no shark until it respawns and comes after you again. So you usually show up at an island, kill the shark, go loot the entire underwater area because there's a chest that you can get under there. And then before the shark comes back, then you go loot the top part of the island.
Yeah,
And it's cool
That
because
sounds pretty
the stuff that you can make to better yourself in the game is very realistic to like what you think would be possible, right? So you're finding plastic and things like this, and you can make flippers, but they're like flippers out of like plastic, like so they look super homemade. And then to be able to breathe underwater, you make plastic bottles, and you can make this scuba set. And when he puts it on, it's literally like a plastic water bottle over his mouth that he's done whatever to turn it into like a breathing mechanism so that you can dive deeper and stay underwater longer.
that's terrific. I always love seeing the interesting technology that people come up with within a survival game to justify certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen a shark in real life?
I've seen like a little baby one, or like at like an aquarium I have.
Yeah.
But I was down in Florida, and I was walking out into the water, and I like stepped down in like this little, there was, I don't know, it felt like it was flat, and then it went down a little bit, and I felt like I stepped lower part of the water. And then 30 seconds later, this thing washes up on the shore. And I mean, it's a shark about this big, or like maybe about a foot long. And I had to, obviously, I had to pick it up and like hold it and like take pictures with it and everything. I got to find the
Sure.
pictures. But yeah, I mean, that's the closest I've been, is holding this little baby shark that I stepped on and didn't
Yeah.
even know it.
Yeah, I've seen baby sharks outside of an aquarium. Besides that, I've seen them in an aquarium, and they're terrifying.
Yeah.
No, you have seen one about 3.5, 4 feet. Because remember, we went to Daytona Beach together and went on a fishing trip in which we caught a shark.
Oh, I remember. I remember you almost saved my life. Thanks, man.
We are on this boat fishing, and we get this shark in, and they're like baiting and allowing to fish. And they took us out to the spot where they knew it was like a reef in which they bred. And we're like fishing for it, and we get it, and we finally get it up into the boat. And then like the boat like rocks, and like I've got the shark, but then I don't have it. I dropped it, and then this thing's not attached to anything, and it hits the deck of the boat and starts.
Yes.
And
It
I
was
mean, it
going
is
nuts.
literally like a 3-foot shark. I mean, it's big.
My life flashed before my eyes. I swear to God.
Like it was panic. I'm like, dude, if
This was
thing-
real life survival.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, this thing is gonna launch. And like I just like panicked. And luckily we're there with trained people who do this. And like he picks it up. And I'll tell you what, the way that they kill these things, the animal cruelty people would probably not be okay with. He picks this thing up, whips it around his head, and just bashes its head into the side of the boat.
Yes.
That was how he killed it.
Yeah.
And mind you, he wasn't just killing it to like throw it back. He killed it and put it in the cooler system. And then when we get back to land, they would actually like skin them and cut them and allow you to take them home to cook and consume. So they weren't just being killed to be killed. But
Yeah. So, and we actually didn't get to take our meat home because we were so seasick. We just had to get the fuck out of there.
sick and sunburnt. Oh my God, we were like lobsters getting off of this thing. We were so seasick that there was a line of people. It was a relatively big boat, so then there was a lot of people who wanted to take theirs home, and it was like, dude, we could be here another hour waiting, and we're both like, do we want it? Like, I'm like, I kind of do, but then we're like, no, let's just go eat food someplace else. And
So that's actually a fun story because I can tell you that of all of the survival games we've played, I would probably be least likely to survive Raft. So out of all of the survival games, which one do you guys think you have the best shot of like actually surviving?
Oh, out of the ones I've played,
Yeah. So you have intimate knowledge with it, so you kind of know how it would work. You know what I mean? So like, how would Brendan survive in whatever game, and like, which one would he be best at?
I would say out of the games that I've played, I think I'd probably live longer. It's a toss up between 7 Days or Valheim, but I feel like the first time I came across a troll in Valheim, I just scream like a girl and die.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know the inner workings of 7 Days better because I was actually just talking about this on my stream the other day, where this is my first playthrough without Steven, and he's the one that did all like the cooking and the gardening and making sure that we can survive, whereas I run around, build things, and that's it. Like I go gather a bunch of wood, come back and build like these big buildings, and then when he's like, hey, we need to go kill this boss because I need to get an upgrade for the kitchen, I'm like, okay, let's go do it. And then I go back to building. That's
Yeah.
probably 7 Days just because I know the game through and through more or less than I do any other game.
Valheim, he would be
Mhm.
nothing without his housewife, is basically what he's saying. Because
Pretty
he was
much.
like, he's like, oh, I need
Yeah.
food, and he would come into the kitchen and be like, oh, you've made
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff, and he would just clean out my kitchen. I'm like, damn it.
That's why earlier I was trying to keep it to myself earlier when he was talking about, that's what he liked about Valheim was your health never went below 25, so you could go farm and do stuff and not have to waste food. Whereas I'm wasting food building because I'm building these super tall buildings that when you fall, you take 70 points of damage. So I have to waste the food while I'm cooking. Otherwise, I will die 35 times making this because I've made it too steep and just fall off the edge.
For me, I would probably say that I would survive longer in Valheim just because I do know the inner workings of it. And there's the aspect of like you don't necessarily have to go out and hunt the trolls or to do that. There's other things that you could do to survive and still, I don't know, I guess still survive without having to do that and put yourself in danger. Like the harvesting of berries and farming bees to then have beehives so that you have food, breeding animals, right? So like I had a farm of boar, and they would breed up to like 10 at a time, and then you would slaughter them for their meat and be able to cook it. And so I think I would be fine. Like I'd get enough materials to build myself a nice little hut and the basic weapons that I need, and kind of live this lonely life in the forest somewhere with
Yeah.
with my boars and my berries and my bees and
Yeah. I think for me, the survival game out of all the ones that I've played and that we talked about today, that I think I'd have the best shot at surviving in would probably be Oregon Trail, because I would be a fucking genius to those guys. I'd be like, don't go in that water, you're gonna get dysentery, you fool.
Hunt
You'd be-
buffalo. I got this. It's just click.
you'd be the first
I would
to
die immediately in every other game.
You'd be the first to die in Oregon Trail because they would convict you of witchcraft.
Yeah.
No, I would show up on Oregon Trail and ask them if they have any gluten-free bread.
Exactly, and they'd be like, "That what kind of witchcraft is that? Burn him at the stake."
Exactly. No, Jebediah, I can't eat that loaf.
It gives me the poos. He's got the dysentery. Get him out of here.
He's gonna infect us all.
Talking about survival games and not knowing anything other than the announcement, what do you guys think about Blizzard coming out with a survival game?
I don't think I've seen that announcement. What is
There's
is it?
nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It shows a picture of this like ladies like crouched down by a path, and it looks kind of old ruins, and like that's it. And they just announced that they're starting a survival game. I'm excited because I've played Blizzard forever, and it's always kind of been my favorite thing, one of my favorite companies, because I mean obviously I grew up playing World of Warcraft, but I'm excited for something new, and it seems like they are as well. The way like people are talking about it that have worked there, and I mean, I'm excited to see what it is. I'm kind of hoping it's maybe shifted towards that, like maybe like a fantasy style survival game. I don't know. Like, what would you guys want to see it be?
I think that would be pretty cool to see like a fantasy style survival game, because that's definitely something that hasn't been done to that to that extent. Like Valheim, I think is probably as fantasy as I've ever seen a survival game, with it being like Viking based, but ultimately you're still just using the same tools, like stone axe and stone spear, and eventually you have iron tools, but you're not playing as somebody who has fantasy style abilities like a mage or something that is in a survival kind of situation. Like you actually
Yeah.
have you're a wizard and you can do this, but the survival aspects are there, and you have to farm for food and things of that nature. That would be really cool. It would bring a different aspect to the game of like, oh, you can do all these things and you're powerful, but like you still could die from normal things, like normal
Yeah.
everyday people.
For me, it would depend on if they were going to use an existing IP or not. I actually had no idea about this.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were even talking about this. Have they said anything beyond, hey, we want to make a survival game?
Nope. They literally came out, and it's been a thing where it just says they're so like, this is from PC Gamer. Current and former Blizzard employees are hyped about its new survival game. Somebody tweeted, "Once upon a time, this dream project was a humble pitch deck on my desktop, and now it's a full team of caring, passionate people sharing a vision I couldn't be more proud of." Like that's it. They literally just came out and said, "We're making a survival game," and that's it. They shared a picture, and that's it.
Yeah, and there's another article that states it's been in the works for about 4.5 years, almost 5 years,
Yeah.
that they've actually been working on it. So
Yeah, and they've kept it completely silent. So I was just like, "What do you guys think it is? What would you guys want to see?" And Steven was talking about how like it'd be cool to see like a survival game where you like have magics, where you're like you can be a mage, but like you can still die to like hunger or stuff like that. Like you build, and, have to survive.
I think, yeah. As soon as you said Blizzard and survival, the first thought I had was they could just make World of Warcraft in a survival game style, and I'm fine.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at.
Like World of Warcraft, but like I have to pay my mortgage, and I have to eat, and I have to drink. You know what I mean? There's fees and stuff. No, but seriously, I mean that world, Azeroth as a world is so cool, and all of the different locations and the spells. I mean, they could set it at some strange time,
Mhm.
early time where they're just setting up settlements, and there really is that survival aspect of maybe an unexplored continent. I mean that would be very exciting for me, because that would fit right in line with what Steven was saying about having like magic in it. I mean, you
Mhm.
could just be a mage, but just tone it down a little bit. Maybe mix like magic and weapons together. Well, it'll give you the option to,
Yeah.
you know. I think it'd be really cool to hunt down wild boars in the forest, but actually, gut them and cook them and eat them on the spit, and have to, or
Yeah.
I'll die.
Yeah. Instead of killing a wild boar and getting meat that you can just immediately eat like you can in WoW.
Exactly.
where you're getting the hide that's already like done. You didn't have
Yeah.
to tan it and stretch it and like
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. That's something I hadn't heard of either.
Yeah. So we've mentioned Minecraft a lot. Has anybody actually played Minecraft? I've played it a little bit, but I did it backwards. I started with 7 Days and other styles of survival games. And then I played Minecraft like a month ago it was more than a month ago. It's probably like 5 months ago for like 3 or 4 weeks and loved it. And I just haven't been back to play it.
Oh yeah. Um, Hopping in the way back machine. I played it in early alpha. I played it a long time ago, and I was very into it. Played it for many hours. It was definitely the thing that got me into the idea of the creative building. They didn't really have much of a survival aspect back then. I mean, it was really mostly just building things, but you had to go out and earn the stuff that you built. So I actually I remember specifically building a giant castle, and I collected all the resources myself. A giant castle, and then I encased it in a waterfall of lava all the way around. That's the stuff that I was getting into back then. But I would also build silly stuff like I remember I built a roller coaster where you go into the mouth of a dragon and you drop out of its stomach all the way to the very bottom of the map, land on another roller coaster rail and continue on. I mean, we would do all kinds of silly stuff. I remember me and my friends got together and we made a server and we basically just tried to make a bunch of silly traps and stuff to trick each other. So I remember building like these weird Aztec style traps where you pulled a lever and like these stones like got moved out of the way because you could use like the pistons with the slime and make things stick so you could move things around. I mean, there was so much creative freedom in that game to just explore. Like it's to this day an amazing game. But I don't play it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, like, you're talking about the just creativeness of it. I mean, you've seen like the YouTube videos of the guys that have made a fully functional Game Boy and you can play games on it. You can play Pokemon and do all these different things. And like, it works. Like you go in and you hit the buttons and your character moves and does stuff. And it's ridiculous the things you can do in that game.
I've played Minecraft all of maybe 5 hours.
You may have watched me play it more than you actually played.
Yes,
I remember you watched me build that castle.
Yes, 100%. That was something that like he would be doing, and I was enthralled with him doing it. But I guess I've just never had that strong of like a creative gene to like go into those games and be like, oh, I have this idea and I'm gonna build this, right? Like even with Valheim, I've done very little. Like I built our kitchen, like that was where my creativeness stopped.
And I will give him credit. That kitchen is phenomenal. But we were building this castle on our first game. And I had laid out the whole, outside of it. And I wanted to put a tower in the corner. And he goes in and bless his little heart. He put, the tower and he made it curved. And I log in and I look at it and I just think to myself, I'm redoing that because like you could just tell it's all lopsided. And so I went back through and redid it. And he he logs in and I go, hey, did you notice? He goes, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I don't like it. He was mad at me because I redid it.
Because I tried so hard for like an hour to build it. And then
I felt so bad because he was so sad.
Yeah, a lot of those games I hop in and I enjoy playing them as long as, I don't have to be the creative in it. Like I'll do all of the work that nobody wants to do, like I'll stand and fish for hours or cook or plant or tend to the animals. That stuff was fun for me, but it was like, oh, we've got to reinforce this or do this. I'm like, yeah, I don't know where we should start or how to start those things. I'll go get the materials that you need to do it. But
there's a game that I love playing that I feel like you would really enjoy because it's kind of like a survival game, but you don't eat. There's no food mechanic. Their survival is literally just not dying to the aliens that live on the planet that you're on. It's called Factorio. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
I have heard of it.
So have you seen Satisfactory? No.
Yes. That's a no from me too.
So that's fine. That's fine. Satisfactory is a 3D version of this game with some different stuff that happens. I like Factorio more myself, but that's also because I put so many hours into it. But the story behind it is essentially also it's a top-down game. It's kind of like Project Zomboid, but it's not like a pre-built map with like buildings and stuff. It's just a planet. It just happens to look like that when you're running around. But the game itself is you're a space pilot that has crash landed on this alien planet, and you essentially have to rebuild your base so that you can fix your spaceship and get off the planet. And that's kind of the story. So you start off with nothing, and you have to start building like mining equipment, and that needs coal, so you need mining equipment to get the coal, and then that spits out to conveyor belts that go down and feed into these other things. And you have these conveyor belt arms that grab objects and put stuff in, and like let's say for example you're getting iron, so you have mining stuff that pushes iron onto conveyor belts that moves down to a furnace, and then the furnace turns it into an ingot or a sheet. And then you can put that onto a conveyor belt and move that down. And then once you get to that point, you can start automating the creation of certain items or any item in the game, really, because you can build these factories and say, build this item. And then you just need to get all of the parts that it needs on the conveyor belts moving to it, and then just have these arms fill it in. And then it makes those, and then it spits those out. And then there's recipes that need those as the items. So then you need those on conveyor belts moving down to build more things. The way that it moves is very much like it's not like a creative game where you're trying to design things. It's more like efficiency. How can I make these items automated in the most efficient, quick way possible? I mean, you can do cosmetic stuff if you want, but I mean, really the game is 100% about efficiency. Build these items as fast as I can and in the quantity that I need them to get to the next stage of the game, while also trying to keep my pollution down from my power. Because as you build your base and it gets bigger, you have to expand. So maybe you're building like a train. You need train rails, so you can build rails all around the world and have these these massive train routes going, which you can automate so that you can have different factories basically producing like iron over here that gets loaded into a train, and the train knows that once all the train cars are full, go to this station, and then it gets unloaded, and then it goes back and gets refilled. I mean, these all eventually you get to the point where you have flying drones that do your bidding. You you can have hundreds of these flying drones that move things around. You don't even need conveyor belts at that point because all the drones are doing everything for you. But all the while, your pollution is going up and up and up, and you're pissing off the local aliens, which I would say look basically like the Zerg from StarCraft. And and as you evolve and increase your technology levels, they too evolve and increase their technology levels, kind of like StarCraft, where they get bigger and badder. So you have to kind of fight off these things as they come to attack you, but you can build many different turret systems so that that too is all automated. I mean, I remember at one point I had my entire base surrounded by regular machine gun turrets. And I was producing machine gun ammo onto conveyor belts and just moving it all around my base, making sure all of my turrets were full at any given time. But you can do flamethrower turrets and laser turrets. You can have your own personal laser beam that shoots when you don't even have to do anything at some point in the game. The game is all about just moving forward, and it's just so fun. It's all about an efficient brain, and I think you would love it.
That's I could get behind that because efficiency was always my goal in Valheim or any of the games that I've played. I'm like, okay, I want to do all these things to progress to the next boss or the next thing that we need. And Brennan was always like, but I'm still building this. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go kill this guy because I need iron, or I need the next resource so that I can make this more efficient for us to be more efficient in this manner.
Yeah.
Like that was always my goal. And I'm like, once I hit that level of efficiency, I was like, yes, this is nice. And then I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next thing that I can do to improve our efficiency?
Yeah. And the best thing about this game is it's multiplayer, so we can play together.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because that's definitely more my speed as far as.
Yeah, in Factorio, you're really just building your factory out, and then once you get to a certain point, you're like, I guess I'll put walls around it. It's not like you're designing anything. It's just I need to enclose this in a wall so that it doesn't get attacked.
Yeah. So with all that, do we have a good not great today?
Okay, so I love getting skinny vanilla lattes, but I only get skinny vanilla lattes when I'm with Jamie because I really love regular vanilla lattes. But I don't want her to know I'm getting the extra sugar.
So what you're saying is the skinny is good,
but
it's not great.
Starbucks, like I love Starbucks. Don't get me wrong. It's great. Like they've got a really good, I'm basic. I love pumpkin spice. It's amazing. But I can turn around and go to Dunkin' and I can get the exact same coffee for a third of the price and it tastes just as good. So Starbucks is good, but it's not great. Dunkin' is better.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, by the sounds of the undead horde outside, it seems like we've been found out. So we're going to go ahead and barricade ourselves in a room upstairs and hope for the best. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
And as always, don't forget to follow us on our socials. That's at GamerGettingOld on Twitter and GamersGettingOlder on Instagram. Also be sure to check out our new merchandise store at gamersgettingolder.com. Until next time. Guys, I think they just got through the kitchen window.